All right, let's go ahead and call the Senate to order. Members, please take your seats. Sergeant Arms, thank you for securing the chambers. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President?
All right, Senators, this evening we are very pleased to be joined by Pastor John Lewis of the Servants of Christ Church in La Plata, Maryland. La Plata, what am I saying? It's a late night. Guest of the distinguished senator from the 28th District. Please rise for the invocation.
Good evening, political leaders, community activists, clergy, and fellow citizens. I'd like to start by personally thanking Senator Ellis for giving me the opportunity to do the invocation. I'd like to thank you for the support that you've given me in working with individuals in the area of reentry, for empowering us to continue to serve individuals with intellectual disabilities, and for helping us to bring healing to those who are addicted to mind-altering substances. I thank you for that, Senator. Your dedication in that area has made us more effective. So thank you for that. And now I'd like to open with prayer. Father, as you preside over this session, please fill this room with your spirit. May there be harmony as our leaders engage with one another, as well as align themselves with your will. Father, let character, conduct, and commitment, a high dose of integrity be displayed with every decision that might be made here tonight. I pray that who's right will never have more influence than what is right. Let purpose, patience, peace be present in this session and forevermore. In honor of the great Dr. King, I would like to end this prayer with one of his quotes. Make a career of humanity. Commit yourself to the noble struggle of equality. You will make a better person of yourself, a greater nation of our country, and find our world a better place to live. Amen. Thank you all so much.
Oh, you did great. It was wonderful. Well said. Very, very well said. Chair recognizes the senator from the 28th District.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Colleague, I would like to thank Pastor Lewis for coming up. He's no stranger to Annapolis and the halls of the Senate. I just want to say how a few years ago, when we introduced a bill to provide ID cards to return citizens, he was the brainchild behind that idea. I would love to think that, all these ideas come from me, but they don't. His work in the reentry area is just legendary throughout Maryland. And I want to say that when we had the hearing in JPR, over 50 returned citizens came up from Charles County through his program to testify, and impressed the committee so much, they formed a work group and they got that bill done, which now returned citizens coming out of incarceration is leaving with a real ID. That's a real ID that they can get on an airplane, they can use to go to schools and get in schools to pick up their kids out of schools. And so I thank Reverend Lewis, and I thank this body for the work we've done. Also like to recognize his wife, Elisa. I hope I said that right. Thank you for coming, Mrs.
Welcome.
Lewis. And his daughter, Joya, who is here also, and she is celebrating a birthday January 17th. Now, I was not told how old she will be, but I will not ask because that's inappropriate. So thank you, Mr. President, colleagues, and I would like to request that his prayer, Pastor Lewis' prayer, be journalized.
Without objection, most certainly we will journalize the pastor's wonderful remarks. It's also my wife's birthday on January 17th, so Great day. Great people were born that day. So excellent. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Senator. All right. Has everyone recorded their presence in the chamber? It appears so. So the clerk will take the call. With 37 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now in session. We're missing just a few folks who called in. They were concerned about the weather, and then some folks were driving and got stuck, and it's been a bit of a journey. So thank you to the 37 who were able to be here tonight. We know it was not easy, and we're gonna make it work. We are very pleased tonight with Martin Luther King Day. We're going to have a speech from the senator from the 28th District, which we were very much looking forward to. But we're going to make sure that we transact all of our business ahead of time. So that will be the final piece of business today. Before we go too far, any announcements, any introductions? Any introductions of folks that are here? No? Do we want to do the yes, Chair recognizes the co-chair of the Protocol Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to thank our pages. We have another week, and our pages walked through the snow, through the weather, in order to be here with us this evening. So I wanted to take an opportunity to welcome them. First, we have Demilade Ifedayo Adeshita from Baltimore City College, District 43B, Baltimore City.
Welcome.
Next, we have Abhishek Iyer, a student at Centennial High School from Howard County, District 9B.
Welcome.
Next, we have Scott Pauley from Baltimore County, District 30B, a student at Calvert Hall College High School.
Welcome. Welcome.
Next, we have Elena Walther from Montgomery County, District 14, a student at Northwood High School.
Welcome.
And last, we have Brandon Williams from Montgomery County, District 15, a student at Winston Churchill High School.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Welcome. You all have a fun week. It won't be too exciting. Well, we'll see. You never know. Things might get a little exciting, but we hope you all have a great experience, and we appreciate you all for being here. All right. Other announcements or introductions? If not, all right, let's go ahead and jump in. So be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. We have introduction of Senate bills as a calendar number 10. Clerk will read the bills.
Senate Bill 344, Senator Waldstreicher, Criminal and Civil Trespass, Professional Land Surveyors, Exception, Judicial Proceedings. Senate Bill
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. They will be referred to their appropriate standing committee. We're at 350 right now. At this time last year, just as a comparison, we were at 140. So we're at 350. We were at 140 last year. So sign of the times, but just remember, time is our only asset that we don't get back. So, all right, let's go to the Senate bond initiatives, calendar number 3. Clerk will read the bond initiatives.
Number 1, Senator Watson, Mandala School, Ransom Lane, Budget and Taxation. Number 2, Senator Watson.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bond initiatives. They will be referred to the Capital Budget Subcommittee. We next have 2 announcements. Clerk will read the first announcement.
In accordance with Rule 33D, the following legislation has been reassigned as indicated below. Senate Bill 49, Senator Alfred's Restrictions on Use Solar Collector Systems, Alteration, reassigned to judicial proceedings.
All right. Message having been read is adopted. Clerk, read the next announcement.
In accordance with Rule 33D, the following legislation has been reassigned as indicated below. Senate Bill 317, Senator Bailey, Oysters, Striped Bass, and Crabs, Commercial Authorization, Suspension, and Revocations, reassigned to Education, Energy, and the Environment.
All right. The bill is ordered reassigned to EEE. All right. The desk is clear of business to transpire. Are any other announcements? Let's do standing committees. Anything from the standing committees? Nope, nothing from the standing committees. All right, for tomorrow morning, and caucus announcements, any caucus announcements? Chair recognizes Chair of the Democratic Caucus.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. President. The Senate Democratic Caucus will be meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. virtually.
Virtually, okay. Chair recognizes the Minority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Republican Caucus will be meeting at 8:30 tomorrow morning. Thank you very much.
All right, excellent. All right, as folks we're going to make calls about what tomorrow looks like. It looks like the roads are kind of dicey out there. But in the morning, we'll update it. The caucus will be virtual. We will be here at 10 a.m. no matter what, but we'll see what happens with committees and the like. It will be updated on the website. So the website will be the most updated place. Senators, you will receive an email from my office if there are any changes, but you can always open up the website for members of the public that may be tuning in. That'll have the most up-to-date information. All right. Any further acts or business? If not, today being Martin Luther King Day, we are incredibly pleased to have, if senators will beg your pardon, Senator Arthur Ellis of the 28th District, who will be providing this evening's annual Martin Luther King address. Please welcome to the dais.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for the call you gave me Friday morning. I was so honored when you asked me to do this, and then I realized there goes my weekend. Colleagues, I'm here to do something to speculate on what Dr. King would do about some of the contemporary issues that we face today. I know you're probably thinking, how dare Ellis do that? And I beg your patience because I'll tell you why I'm right. Speculate on what Dr. Martin Luther King would say or do in response to a specific contemporary event requires an understanding of his philosophies and historical context. Dr. King was a proponent of nonviolence and believed in addressing the root cause of conflict through dialogue and understanding. So how do we get in Dr. King's mind in 2024 and make the statements that I will present to you? And I know some of you will be upset at me, some of you will be pleased with me about some things, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I was talking to my daughter about my assignment. He said, Dad, don't sweat it. I'm going to have AI help you. And she did. She's a graduate of University of Maryland, degree in accounting and information systems. So she knew a thing or two about computers. So I always remember, though, this phrase, garbage in, garbage out. At first, I put garbage into the system, and I got a whole bunch of garbage back, all right? And so it was like, oh, no, let's refine our input into the computer system, into AI. And we did a test. We did a test of something that happened in the past that Dr. King didn't know nothing about. We put in George Floyd in the computer system. What would Dr. King do about the police killing of George Floyd a few years ago, which created a lot of movement in this body? And so the one thing they came back and said was Dr. King would likely express strong condemnation of that killing and racial injustice. Then he would call for peaceful protest while expressing outrage and sorrow. And then he would highlight the need for systematic change. He would likely highlight the need for significant changes in police practices, criminal justice reform, and broader societal efforts to confront and eradicate systematic racism. Now, those of you who were here a few years ago, did we take up those issues in this body? Did we do police reform? The answer is yes, we did. So I was like, this AI is onto something, right? I'm very, very much in tune to what was done. So I can go forward and test out some stuff that we are acting on now, we are being impacted by, not necessarily in this body legislatively, but in our society. And let me put my foot someplace where I want to remind you, this is not me saying this, this is AI saying what Dr. King would say. So Reverend King was an outspoken advocate on behalf of Israel's security and anti-Semitism, especially among African-American community. Dr. King famously once told an audience of Jewish listeners at the popular Long Island vacation spot, Fire Island, that there is virtually no anti-Semitism within the Negro community. Dr. King spoke at the annual convention of the Rabbinical Assembly in '68, and Dr. King said, now this is a quote, "The response of some of the so-called young militants does not represent positions of the vast majority of Negroes. There are some who are color consumed, and they see a kind of mystique in blackness or in being colored, and anything non-colored is condemned." When talking about the young folks, we think of a rapper who changes his name all the time, and he's really vocal with stuff. But what Dr. King was faced back then is what we face now. People like that, don't represent us. Dr. King went on to say, this is a direct quote, "Peace for Israel means security, and we must stand with all of our might to protect its right to exist, its territorial integrity. I see Israel, I never mind saying it, as one of the great outposts of democracy in the world, and a marvelous example of what can be done, and how desert land almost can be transformed into an oasis of brotherhood and democracy. Peace for Israel means security, and that security must be a reality." And around that time when Dr. King made that statement, he was planning a trip to Israel. And around that 67, 68, there was a war in that area and created a little discomfort for Dr. King. So put off the trip. And we know what happened in '68 to Dr. King. Unfortunately, he was assassinated. Dr. King called for nonviolence. He speaks of understanding in dialogue, human rights and justice, and international cooperation. So let me take it back to Maryland and talk about some of the issues we face in our present day Maryland, and we'll talk about the incarceration of black men in Maryland. Maryland has the largest proportion of incarcerated black men in the nation, more than Mississippi. And I lived in Mississippi. I was stationed in the Air Force in southern Mississippi, and they had issues. But to say Maryland is worse than the worst state we think of when it comes to racial justice, it's unacceptable. So what would Dr. King say to us in Maryland about that fact? Dr. King would likely critique the systematic inequality within the criminal justice system. He will call for comprehensive reform, and he'll link a lot of these problems to broader socioeconomic issues. Understand the interconnected nature of social issues. Dr. King might also speak about how systematic racism, poverty, lack of educational and employment opportunities, and other socioeconomic factors contribute to high incarceration rates. He would likely call for a holistic approach to address these root causes, approaches like the blueprint, which we aim to increase the effectiveness of our schools across the entire state of Maryland. Let me step on some other toes now. A lot of us students of history understand how the federal government, through the FBI, haunted Dr. King, sent in informers to plant bad information, to get false information and send it to his wife and children. A lot of disinformation, a lot of harassment, and not just of Dr. King, but of a lot of members in the movement during that time. So what would Dr. King say about our former president called to defund the FBI? What would he say about that? And many of his colleagues. Dr. King would say, we need to have a constructive dialogue between the government, the FBI, and the public. He believed in the power of peaceful protest and civic engagement as a means to effect change. He would advocate for solutions that strengthen justice and accountability without undermining national security and public safety. He might suggest reforms within the FBI that ensures its operations are transparent, equitable, and in line with democratic values. What he's saying is, we need the FBI. What he's saying, AI is saying, Dr. King saying. We would need the FBI. We need the FBI. We need a national structure to provide for our safety and security. At the same time, admitting their wrongdoing. And for them to admit their wrongdoing, to be able to go forward and do their mission, because the FBI was and is run by human beings. And all of us, well, I'm imperfect. And most of us as humans have levels of imperfections. And we as humans, we are the people who man and woman these institutions. And we have to work to create a more perfect union. Let's move on to a lighter issue and think about what would Dr. King say about the seeming back-to-back prosecutions of African American leaders in Maryland. Now, I'm not going to stand here and talk about each case, whether it's right or it's wrong, but let's look at numbers and see what the numbers say. Just in this body and General Assembly over the last, since I've been here, 6 years, I think 4 or 5 African Americans individuals have been incarcerated who were members of this body, not necessarily in the Maryland General Assembly. In addition to mayors in Baltimore, they're put in jail. In addition to a former state prosecutor. In addition to, if we go back a few years, we laid the wreath at Dr. King's memorial plaque out here a few minutes ago under his oak tree that was planted 40 years ago. And a former senator was there who was hounded and thrown out of this body and prosecuted, and he's still there. And another former senator who was in this body who was prosecuted and in jail, both African Americans. Now, growing up in the United States since I was 10 years old till now, I went to school with a diverse set of folks from elementary school, middle school, high school, University of Maryland, Air Force, I served. And I know all of us had faults, but when it seems like one set of people are the only ones being hounded, being put under the microscope, being prosecuted, it reminds me of what happened to Dr. King and our civil rights leaders, where the law enforcement say, we will inspect every aspect of your life. And if we find one imperfection, we're going to send you to jail. And there are examples of individuals, white individuals, in political bodies who do stuff too, and we forget about it. What has changed? And AI said not much has changed. But you know what? Personally, I'll speak this, and I care. I care. But I don't care if they come after me, because you know what? Dr. King cared, but again, he did not care. He said, I see the mountaintop the day before he was assassinated. They told him what was going to happen to him. And he did not receive any police protection or protection from the FBI. And That's why we honor Dr. King, because he cared and then he didn't care, in that he realized there was a greater mission. And so the thing is, we have to look at how our law enforcement is mobilized against people. And when you see this injustice, say something. What are they going to do to you? We're all going to die anyway eventually. Shoot. So you know what? Let me die a martyr. Let them build a memorial after me, right? Dr. King is viewed as a great civil rights leader. We shall overcome. I have a dream. But in addition to the civil rights part, he focused on economic rights. The part of his mission that put him in the most trouble was when he started talking about economic rights. And he was in Memphis leading the protests to really create economic opportunities for folks in that city, sanitation workers, not just black, but white, to have economic opportunities for their families. Dr. King cared about health care. Dr. King said, this is a quote, "The most inhumane part of society is when members of this country are not provided proper health care." Inhumane. And what's inhumane about black Marylanders, women given birth, are 3 times more likely than white Marylanders to die during the birthing process. And their babies are 3 times more likely to die. What's not inhumane about that? I'm happy to say that we have several bills going through this body this year, sponsored by the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland, to continue to help work towards nip away that terrible, terrible statistics, that inhumanity, where our mothers and our sisters and our daughters and our granddaughters going in the hospital to have their babies, worried that they might not get the care they need to make it out, and to know that the system is stacked against them. We as leaders have an opportunity to work on these issues and to solve these issues. I just want to say that I have 30 more pages here to go, and I don't want to be expelled from this body, Mr. President. So I want to thank you so much for your patience, for allowing me to maybe be the first to read an AI speech in the Senate of Maryland. So thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues. And may God bless you. And may we continue to work to honor the legacy of the late Dr. Martin Luther King.
Well said, sir. I was thinking the same thing, that when you were saying, I would challenge that there has probably not been another ChatGPT assisted speech in any legislature across the country. Talk about a brave new world. Thank you for thinking through. And look, I know it was a very short turnaround. That was very thought provoking, and I really appreciate the work. I know this entire chamber does. Thank you for your efforts and for making us think tonight. Thank you. Chair recognizes the majority leader on the senator's remarks.
I'd like to move that we have the senator's remarks journalized, please.
Without objection, most certainly we will journalize the senator's remarks, and thank you for making us think tonight, truly. All right, any additional pieces of business before we conclude? If not, let's go ahead and call the roll for a quorum.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 37 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Tuesday, January 16th at 10 a.m.
Without objection, 10 a.m. Everyone be safe tonight and tomorrow morning, and we will see you bright and early.